Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Now, love is not a word you often hear used in the office or meeting rooms, yet loving our staff has become more important now than ever before. Today, Gus Arianto and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Matt Aitken, CEO of IVE Group, Australia's leading holistic marketing company. Matt leads over 2,000 staff across Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and China. And Matt is here today to teach us all the importance of loving our staff and our customers, and how businesses should remain relevant both today and tomorrow. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Nat. Thanks, Gus. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Matt, for donating your valuable time. Our audience all over the world will get a lot of insight. This is the topic that many people like to talk. It's easy to hear, but it's very difficult to execute in any organizations, especially when we talk about love. So we can't wait to learn from you.
Sure. Thanks, Gus.
But before we do learn from you, Matt, we do have your two fun questions prepared and we'd love to ask. First of all, where will we find you when you're not at work?
You might find me around the surf club at Cronulla, where I live, and I'm the deputy president of Cronulla Surf Lifesaving Club, or doing things with my girls and in the kitchen cooking and having a bit of fun. So, yeah.
Fantastic. And what about coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Oh, fantastic. Gus, you're outnumbered
Matt,
today.
Can I just clarify, when you said that when you are spending time with your girls cooking, it's include the cleaning as well? Because my type of cooking is everything prepared. I do the main event and I walk away from everything else.
Yeah, I subscribe to your theory, Gus. So I like to cook, and I believe that whoever I've cooked for should clean up. So, but hey, when you're doing it together with your girls, I think you do everything together, right?
That's fantastic. Matt, before we go into it, I gave a really brief intro to yourself at the beginning, but we'd love to learn a bit more about you and your career. Can you give us a bit of some insight into Matt Aitken?
Yeah, Nat, my career has transcended financial services marketing roles in New Zealand, where I grew up, and into then the advertising agency space. I relocated to Australia in 1998 to open the Sydney office of a New Zealand ad agency. And that agency was bought by what is known today as IVE Group about 6 months after we opened here in Sydney. And I've been part of this group for 25 years ever since then, in many, many different roles. And this group has taken many different twists and turns along the way to get to where we are today as a large listed company in the Australian market.
Fantastic. Now, this topic that we're bringing to the show today, loving our staff and our customers. We have spoken about this, Matt, earlier in the week off air, but we have to start by asking this question. So we have to love our customers and our staff. Who is more important in this hierarchy? Is it the customer or is it our staff?
Yeah, so Nat, my view is they're actually first equal. So when I think about our three key stakeholder groups of staff, customers, and shareholders, and yes, shareholders for us are public shareholders, but for small business or private businesses, they can be private investors or in fact the owners themselves running the business. But if I think about those three key stakeholder groups, there is not a simple 1, 2, 3. There's a first equal, and that is your staff and your customers, and you've got to love them both. And I firmly believe that if we love our staff and we love our customers and we give them all what they're looking for and what they want, and we're all pushing in the right direction, then our shareholders will be very, very happy shareholders in being part of our journey.
Yeah. See, I love this. And Matt, when we talk about love, and we've had a chat about this as well, what do we mean by love? Like, what is it that we're actually giving? Obviously, for those listening, you can have a chuckle, but it's not the romantic love. How do we show our customers and our employees this love?
Yeah, I think for the staff side, it's about that passion and that care factor and that empathy with them, and it's about being present with them. So, as a CEO, it's not about sitting in the ivory tower of a business, whether that's a business of 20 people, 50 people, or 2,000 people like we have. It's about actually being out there in the in the office with them, or in the business with them, or on the ground with them. And we're a business that is a mixture of white collar workforce, so salespeople and administration staff and so forth. But we also run 24/7 manufacturing operations around a large part of Australia. So we have a very large blue collar workforce too. And clearly the needs and the wants of a blue collar workforce at times can be quite different to those of a white collar workforce. And you've got to have that ability to transcend cultures within your business. You've got to have that ability to transcend age and backgrounds and people's roles and where they've come from and where they want to be in the future. And I think if you spend the time talking to them, having that empathy with what they're about, understanding a bit more about who they are outside of work and what's important to them. For some people, it'll be sport. For some people, it'll be their family. They might be about to have a new child arrive in the family, or a wedding, or a son or a daughter get married. Like, there's lots and lots of levels I believe you can connect with your staff on that creates that level of empathy and that relationship that goes far beyond a shift or far beyond a 7.5-hour working day.
Matt, I have a question for you. So maybe two questions. I start with asking you from the lens of a very small business, in the similarity of me being a father of two older teenagers. I have two older teenagers. I love them to the maximum. I hardly give them candy anymore. I sometimes smack them, not smack physically, but I love them. But I really get angry when I see them doing things that I know can endanger their future. And time to time, I assume they might think I don't love them. Now, this is only between father and son. Now, we are talking about a business where I'm as a mechanic shop owner with 5 people, do not have enough money. I can't do a lot of things for them. I love them. I understand their challenges. And I know if they're not working, my business will be dead and they can't actually go home, feed their family. How can I provide that love when I unable to demonstrate the common love that people understand in the business, where we take them for coffee, we eat croissant in the morning. We are talking oily hands here and a lot of angry customers. How do we do that?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, Gus, because I don't think it always has to be monetary related. I'm not a big one for saying we have got to shower staff in gifts to as a display of love, or to show that love, or show that care factor. And I think a lot of it comes back to that presence piece. And yes, I think in businesses where you do have the opportunity to grab a staff member and take them for a coffee and have a chat, that's a great thing to do, or to meet them and have breakfast. But running with your example of that mechanic shop maybe, or thinking about our sites where we've got 24/7 production facilities and we have operational KPIs and imperatives that we have to deliver on every single shift. How do we take the staff away from that environment to display that love and that care factor from the business, whilst not disrupting ultimately what we need to achieve in the business during that day? And we spend a lot of time in the business, Gus, doing barbecues for staff, and you will see it's the leaders on the barbecues. It's not the staff. We don't expect the staff to cook for us. We cook for them and we provide for them, and it doesn't cost the company a lot of money in the great scheme of things. So whether you've got 5 staff or 10 staff, putting on some rolls and some sausages for 5 or 10 staff hopefully should not break the bank for most people. And having a barbecue for them, or we get a few pizzas in and we sit around the lunchroom table on a shift break while they're having a break, but we provide the pizzas for the day and we sit down and we have a bit of a chat about what's going on in the business. So I don't think you have to shower people with gifts. There's plenty of examples where just allowing staff to take off early from work one day, or head away for a long weekend with their family, or that they've been working long hours for you. How do we make sure we sort of give that back to them a little bit with a bit of a break? Those sorts of things, I think, just go a long way, where they recognise you're on the front foot addressing that. And you raised earlier, Gus, teenage kids and maybe a bit of a challenge around performance and direction and what they're doing, and you wanting to address that as well. And I don't think that this love of your staff should at any point interfere with your ability, or you need to also hold a firm line at times and to to discipline if you need to run a disciplinary process, because ultimately you are a business owner, and many of the people listening to this will also be the actual owners of the business outside of just the person running the business. And for many small business owners, right, their houses are on the line and all sorts of things. So I think they have to be able to also draw that line between, yes, I do have a lot of love for you, and I really want this family connection in the business, but also we need to deliver what's important to this business, what's important to our customers. And it's really important that our staff are all pushing and pulling in the right direction. And the reality is, in my opinion, is not all staff are going to want to open up and have that broader relationship with you. There will always be staff who just want to come and do their 7.5-hour day and go home. And, you know, work is just a function for them to maybe earn some money and do other things they want to do in life. And I think if you can read the room and understand that, that's okay. And if that's what makes them tick, then that's also fine. There's no need to push and pry any further. But work is a big part of people's lives. They spend a lot of time there. And, you know, we need to go beyond just thinking of them as employees who are coming in to do a job for us and going home, and think a lot more about how do we care for them. And how far does that care factor go? And, you know, one of the things we did touch on a little bit earlier was in and around the impact of mental health in the business or in our society today. And, you know, I think that impact on mental health was playing itself out before COVID, but clearly it's further exacerbated itself through COVID. And, you know, Gus, we have a lot of staff in Melbourne. You're based in Melbourne. We saw the impact on our Victorian staff in particular be far greater than what we saw on our New South Wales staff, just because of the different lockdown conditions that everyone operated under. But look, one of the things I did as a leader in our business was recognise that I think mental health is an extremely important thing, and we need to understand and better support our people when they are going through challenging times, whether that was related to work or related to home or other factors in their life. And pre-COVID, we put 30 of our staff through a mental health first aid course and had them all certified as mental health first aiders. And we're going to go and do about another 30 or 40. And I've got a stated goal that by 2025, I want to have 80 of our 2,000 staff certified as mental health first aiders in our business. And they're the people that are going to also help support our staff when they're going through challenging times, and work with them on those and help support them and push them in the right direction of where they can get further support and further help. And I think it's a really important thing as a business leader that comes through that level of empathy beyond, again, just what we're asking them to do during the day. And there's, you know, that does come at a cost to do those courses, but there are fantastic organisations like Gotcha for Life and Man Anchor who will actually assist with funding for small businesses, some of those mental health first aid courses. And there are ways for people to tap into them where it won't cost, or it's a very, very minimal cost if that's something that interests them.
Yeah. Matt, one more question. On the other side, if I'm a medium-sized business, so big enough to have teams and structure, and I am the CEO of the organization, or you are the CEO of the organizations, how do you instill this culture of loving your team and customer? How do you, I can see that you're doing that. How do you ensure, and what do you do if your team not doing that equally, because you can't touch 2,000 people, I assume, with your love, without your team bringing the same vision on this?
Yeah, and I think it's a good question, Gus. I think you've got to make sure your leadership teams, and we have an executive leadership team and a senior leadership team, and then in our sites we have leadership teams. You've got to make sure your leadership teams are completely in sync with what that message is. And if that's not our message, and we don't believe we can deliver that message, well, then what is our message? What is the culture that we want to create? If it's not one of loving our staff and really caring for our staff and caring for our customers, well, then we have to find another beacon on the hill that we're going to aim for in and around this, because it's just not good enough to just let a business amble along and people come and go from work and not have good career prospects, whether it's in your business or whether you're growing them as an individual so they can leave your business and go on to a career elsewhere and pursue their dreams. It's just not good enough in today's age to not have a vision for how we're going to care about the people that we are custodians of. And, you know, I think, you know, in my instance, we've got 2,000 staff. We have a responsibility to them and their families to support them, and also to the communities that they live within, to be a good employer, to be a good business to them, to make sure that they are financially secure, and to make sure that we continue to, you know, pay them the right wage, pay them in a timely manner, and that we support them in whichever way we can possibly support them. So that would be my view, Gus. I think to your question about, you know, your medium-sized business, you've got a bit of structure about you. How does that sort of play itself out? Like if we can think about our business, you know, having that structure around for me, having those leadership teams around for me actually enables me as a CEO to spend even more time with our staff, because one of the things I recognise as a small business owner is often you're wearing multiple hats in that small business and you're having to do a lot of those things yourself. And so maybe you don't have as much time to dedicate to what it is, you know, dedicate yourself to some of these sorts of things you either want to do or maybe know you need to do because you've got so many hats you're wearing. So I think if you're a medium-sized business or a larger business like us, you use that structure to your benefit. Again, it would be easy to say, well, I've got my leaders out there working with the teams, let's sit in the ivory tower and, you know, get on with working on the business and not in the business or doing whatever we want to do. But I think I see it as a real advantage that I've got great leaders in our business at all levels, and that enables me to spend time with our staff in the sites, out in the field, and spend a lot of time with clients as well. And that's what I love, and that's what makes me tick as a leader.
Yeah, thank you.
It's such a great topic. And Matt, I'm just thinking for those listeners tuning in right now, and they're panicking because they've never had this discussion with their team about our vision, let alone shown them any love. For anyone that's in this position where they've never had this, they're so busy getting their team of 30, perhaps they own a plumbing business. They're always out there, taking the calls, going out there, fixing things, but they've never actually had this chat about vision or love or anything like this. Where do they start? What do they do? What is your advice to them?
Yeah, Nat, we've done things like we've surveyed staff, we've found staff, identified staff in our business and in sites. Some of our sites, we've only got 30 people in some of our sites or 15 people in some of our sites. So whilst we might be a large business on an Australian scale with 2,000 staff, we still have lots of sites around the country where we have 10 staff, 15 staff, 20 staff, and then we've got others where we've got hundreds of staff. But we've identified in every single one of our sites people who could be what we call brand ambassadors. And they're not brand ambassadors of IVE to our customers and what they're out there doing. They're brand ambassadors of the culture and the values of IVE and what we want to do in our sites and in our business for our staff. And when we run events or when we run initiatives, they are the people that get amongst it and lead it. And so what you'll find in our business is when we are doing things in our sites for our people, it's not our general managers that are fronting them or our CEOs or that it is our brand ambassadors who are doing a lot of the organising, a lot of the coordination. They're feeding back up to us around what's important for those sites, what do they want to do, and we're providing that support accordingly. Now, when it comes to the day of getting on the tools, whether it's the barbecue or serving or whatever, yes, absolutely, the leadership team will be there. But I would say, to your question of a business with 30-odd staff, what do they do? You could survey your staff. I mean, you could identify a couple of people or a person or two within the business who may be people that you could actually charge with some responsibility around driving some programs within the business and become your brand ambassadors. I think there's a whole range of things that can be done that, even if it's just sitting down and having a town hall meeting with your staff. So, many of our sites will sit down quarterly and we'll talk to them about what's going on in the business, but ultimately we're seeking their feedback on what do they think, what else are they looking for, what would they like us to be focusing on. As leaders, we don't always have all the answers either. That's the other thing is we are the CEO or I am the CEO and we're expected to have the answers and have the vision. But actually, I've got the power of 2,000 staff who can help me with ideas around where we should be taking the business. And I want those ideas, right? It's not Matt's way, it's our way. It's how we're going to make this an even greater business than what it is today and do that together. And so it's really important that we have that staff connection. And I think out of those sessions comes then opportunities for you to sort of drive initiatives within your business, take your business in different directions and expand what you do.
That's brilliant. Matt, you mentioned brand ambassadors. I'm aware of what brand ambassadors are. For anyone listening in, can you just explain what that brand ambassador, like what they actually do?
Yeah, so they have a day job, first of all, Nat. So they need to do their day job for us, right? So whether you're working in one of our factories or you're a salesperson or an administration person, you need to do the job we've employed you to do. But as part of that too, you are the person for your site that is going to represent and organise initiatives and events within your site. So, if you went back into the 80s, we probably worked in businesses where there were social clubs and those sorts of things, and a couple of the staff would sit in a social club committee, right? And it's probably just a 2022-23 version of some of that social club stuff. But you know, we as a company want to drive programs and initiatives for our staff. So whether that's at the moment, Nat, we're rolling out a program of flu vaccinations, and we're working with one of the health insurance companies around that. So how can we work, say, with someone like a Bupa, for Bupa to deploy nurses out in our sites to run flu vaccinations, but then knowing that not all of our staff work on site, or not all of our staff will be on site when those nurses are there, how do we then furnish them with vouchers that they can go into a chemist warehouse and redeem those vouchers for a flu vaccination in chemist warehouse? Because I know if we have staff, those that want to vaccinate, I know that if they are well through winter, we will have more productivity at work than if we have a flu pandemic and staff are off. And so if they want to take that opportunity up, then that's their prerogative, and we provide that for them. And that's no different to skin cancer checks and other things. We do a lot of stuff in September every year around Are You OK Day and mental health awareness weeks and months. But yeah, look, I think for us, the brand ambassadors are a really important link between the programs and the initiatives we want to put on for our staff, but how they actually get executed in the sites that we have and that we operate. Because you can't just send a pack of stuff out from group office and hope that it gets represented appropriately. You can't just say, I'm going to give you a couple $100 for a barbecue or whatever and hope that it all happens. These people are actually taking the initiative and representing what we want to create down at a site level with the employees.
Hey, Matt, I remember reading this small story. I can't remember exactly, but I think it go like this. Someone asked a Buddhist monk and said, what's the difference between like and love? And this monk say, well, let's look at a beautiful flower. If you like the flower, you pluck the flower and you show it around, you put it around your ears, and you make yourself proud, and you make the flower proud without realizing that the flower will be dead. Instead, if you love the flower, you leave it there and you put water and you grow the flower and you enjoy the fact that the flower grows. So back to the topic of love, the importance of love. Organization required to invest in the people. One of the way showing love. How organization in the small and medium business should do this when we are busy, no time, yet we know the water is the investment in their knowledge. So my youngest son, working in a very small pizza shop, making pizza. And I said to him, do you like working in that place? Why don't you work in the place where your brother works? It's a big company, blah, blah. Oh, I love it because the owner, every single night on weekends, teach me how to make a better pizza. And I'm actually throw back thinking, okay, so what valuable for my son is the fact the owner is actually investing in teaching how to make a better pizza. There's nothing about he can go home with a pizza every night. Is this something important for any organization, whatever the size, around investment to the people for their growth? Is a demonstration of love of the organization to them?
Yeah, I think first of all, in your analogy you used, Gus, I would say for me the word like just doesn't have an appropriate level of passion for the care factor. Yeah, whereas I think love has that real sort of strong passion and belief. And that, as you said earlier, love in the workplace is not about romantic love. It's just about passion and care and real drive. You know, I just don't think like carries that off as well. And because we use the word love around loving our clients as well. So we've got to carry that same passion through to our clients and how we work with our clients and how we serve our clients and how we make our clients really successful and how we become an extension of our client's business. Because ultimately, if we're really valuable, then that relationship is really sticky. If it's a sticky relationship, then hopefully over time we can do more and more and more for those clients. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in this talk. But Gus, I think, you know, staff want to learn, right? Like some staff don't. Some staff just come to work, go home, and, you know, they're passionate about sport or family life or other things, and that's okay. But a lot of staff want to learn, and it is incumbent upon us as owners and CEOs and leaders to help them on that pathway of learning. And we can't always be the ones that are gonna arm them with that knowledge. So, you know, that might require us to look at some external training or some external training support. And that's where things like industry associations can be really valuable, because industry associations can provide training programs that maybe if you're a member of an industry association, what is your industry association doing to support your business? Because that's why industry associations exist in many, many ways. So what grants have the government got going at the moment that we could work with our business advisors on, maybe, if we've got a business advisor to tap into to get money from the grant from the government to help with training. So there are a range of ways I believe that businesses, particularly small to medium businesses, can access money and access assistance in and around training for employees without having to fund it themselves. We know that if we empower our employees and we drive more training and more opportunity in for them, then we are going to get better results in our business. And if one of the consequences is that over time, an employee leaves to pursue their career elsewhere because we can't provide them that next step up, then yes, that's really disappointing to lose that employee. But how happy are we for them that on their journey with our organisation, they've gone from maybe here to up here. We've been part of taking them on that journey, and they're going off to pursue their career elsewhere. And you know what? At some point in the years to come, maybe they'll come back because maybe there will be an opportunity. So I think we also have to have a very open mind around, you know, around the benefits of training. And not think that training staff is going to lead to them leaving because they're going to be more equipped, or not believe either that just because we train staff, it means we need to pay them more, which I know can be a dilemma for some business owners, right? And some leaders is, well, if we train them up and they do this and they do that for us now, then they're going to expect more pay rises. Well, I think we need to, as leaders, find the balance and find the tension around how we tackle some of that stuff, because often the training we can provide should be or could be in lieu of some of the remuneration discussion, at least for a period of time. But also maybe as staff members do become more qualified or better in what they're doing, or maybe they actually do deserve better remuneration and more remuneration, and that's okay, because the results as leaders that we're getting from those staff support that change in pay as well. So I think it's really incumbent, Gus. You know, it's very easy, again, if you've got a business advisor, and even if you don't, there's enough online to set up little mentoring programs within businesses, you know, and they can be quite rudimentary mentoring businesses if you don't have a lot of resource. But again, you know, just that mentoring, just having a staff member have someone in the business they know they can go to and trust and have those conversations and be guided on, I think are really, really important things around staff developing, you know, their resilience, their fortitude, their ability, their contributions in the business. There's a whole range of things. So I guess I think there's lots and lots of things that we can do as leaders to bring our staff on a journey and empower them. And again, that's part of that love and that passion for your people.
I want to ask Matt, we've spoken about loving our staff quite a bit. I want to switch it to loving our customers, because, you know, I'm sure every business, they've got their wonderful customers, but they've also either dealt with difficult customers, have a handful of difficult customers, have had difficult conversations, come off the phone with a headache. You know, I mean, I run a small business. I have dealt with that, so I know what it's like. Do we still have to love these customers is the golden question. And if so, how do we do it? Because it can be really difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, Nat. And you probably just can't love all customers, right? We have 2,800 customers. I think we all have some difficult customers, and some customers you just have to accept that you know, they don't want anything more than just for you to be a supplier and just supply what you're supplying to them, and they're going to pay your bill, whether it's 7 days, 30 days, or whether they decide they're going to hold you out and pay you 60 or 90. That's just the way they behave and conduct themselves as a business. And I think, to me, there's a lot less of that these days than what there was, you know, if you went back 4 or 5 years ago. But there's no doubt that you still have some customers like that. And customers can change over time too, right? Because you have key stakeholders and customers change. So it can be a fantastic relationship today where we've done all this great work for this customer over the last 5 or 10 years. And then all of a sudden your key contacts leave, someone else comes in, they want to prove themselves and change it up. And that relationship gets a little bit frictious. But I think, you know, if you can continue to demonstrate value for your customers over time, no matter the change in stakeholders, you go above and beyond, you prove that you are adding value. So I think for us, we don't want to be seen as just an order taker with our customers. We actually want to be seen as that we are adding value to their business, that we're thinking about other things we could be doing for them or they could be doing, that we're present in and around their business. So again, we're not just emailing them and sending couriers back and forth. We've actually got our staff either on site, going to see them, looking to buy them a coffee if that's the right thing to do, just showing that extra care factor. I think they are all really important parts in terms of loving that customer. And a lot of businesses do it really well today. So that's nothing unique to IVE either, in my opinion. I just think it's a really important thing that if you show that passion, then that client retention piece is going to be even stronger. If you're a business that is challenged on your margins and maybe is getting squeezed on price, then again, I think that strong working relationship with your customer should afford you an opportunity over time to maybe change that margin structure, or to be able to have some of those difficult discussions that you need to have about putting price up. Anyone who's been in our world for the last 2 years knows how much labour, electricity, gas, and everything else has gone up in this country, raw materials. I think it's pretty tough for any client to deny a business the opportunity to increase price as a result of those cost pressures. And yes, it's incumbent upon us as businesses and leaders and suppliers and partners of our clients to make our businesses as efficient as we possibly can to mitigate those ongoing cost increases that we need to pass on to customers. But I think it's, again, the strength of the client relationship is so important. So when times are tough and you need to have that difficult discussion, you have it, and you move past it and you implement what's required. Or, from time to time, you might stuff up a job with a client. Again, you don't want to find yourself where you're sort of cut off at the knees and you're not working with them any longer. Those relationships need to be resilient enough to stand the test of time, no matter what takes place.
The test of love, whether it's customer or staff, is when conflict happens. I see it with my 2 sons. When they have conflict, both of them said, I don't love them, depending on who I protect. So in the case where there is conflict happen, how do you have any tips how you still demonstrate to both that you as a leader, you as the owner of a mechanic shops, you as the owner of a pizza shop is actually passionately care for both of them in the middle of a real conflict that happened between your customer and your organizations?
I don't think conflict's a bad thing either, Gus. I think that's the other thing, right? Is we don't all want to live in a world where we sort of are all about holding hands or hugging trees and, thinking that it's just rosy 24/7, because that's not healthy for any of us. So having a bit of conflict in the business or a bit of tension, as long as it's healthy, whether that's with your staff or with your customers, is not a bad thing, because it's ultimately what makes us better people and better leaders and have better relationships if we can get through those points of conflict. And I am a big believer in making sure we need to, have high expectations of our staff too around performance. So we should have this absolute love for our staff, but we as leaders should have high expectations around performance and high expectations around what we want to achieve in our business. And where our staff are not quite on the money in terms of meeting those expectations, we should be having those discussions. And if that means there's a little bit of conflict or there's a little bit of tension, then so be it. But I think the staff would much rather know and much rather have a straight up and down discussion if you're not happy or you don't quite think they are where they need to be, and you've got some guidance as to where you're going to take them from there. Because if you don't address it and you let it fester over time, the relationship breaks down, they feel unwanted, they go away, or you just get so sick of the situation that you make some rash decision one day and all of a sudden you've got a bigger issue on your hands. I think it also, Gus, comes down to everyone has their own individual leadership styles. So I would like to think mine is not about ranting and raving around the business, albeit maybe I've got some staff on the line here at the moment who might have a wry smile on their face. But it's about, again, how do you carry yourself as a leader in the business? And so then how do you deal with, this aspect of communicating this love and passion for your people, but also addressing performance-related issues when they come up? And I think if you're someone that comes across, this is just my own personal opinion, if you're someone who comes across as someone who shouts and rants and raves and all of that, well, then all of a sudden you go from, I don't believe you retain the same level of respect with staff. And I think they start to become scared of you to some extent, that if they do something wrong, then there's going to be a massive blow up. So again, I think if you can be a pretty even keel leader in terms of the way you go about things, then when you've got to have those tough discussions and you're going to have a little bit of conflict, then at least it's done in a respectful way. And people can pick up change in tone, change in mannerisms. And I don't need to rant and rave for someone to know that maybe it's not 100%, I'm not 100% happy with where we're at on something and what we need to do. but we also then move past it. And I often say to my staff, your problems are my problems. So, if we're not quite hitting our numbers somewhere, or we're letting a customer down, it's not just your problem, that's my problem as well. So we actually got to solve it together. I might not be happy that we've let a customer down. I might not be happy that a staff member hasn't quite done what they've done, but we actually got to work through that together. And I, just like many of the other leaders in our business, are all part of addressing and fixing that and getting it back on the right track.
Yeah, it seems like, Matt, just the common theme that comes from this showing love is also the honesty and the transparency reciprocated both ways, isn't it? Like, you said your problem is also my problem, which also means that the love, we've spoken about empathy and all those things, but it's also about trust and honesty, because you need to understand your employee, but your employee also needs to understand their leader.
Yep.
Would you agree?
Exactly. Yeah, I would definitely agree, Nat. And I think, one of the things you need to be careful of in an organisation with layered leadership, so you get to your point, Gus, that sort of example of a 30 or 40 person business before with sort of leadership teams and line leadership in place, is it is really important that the staff, on the floor or in the business, absolutely understand what the owner or what the CEO believes in and trusts them. And you've got to make sure that your divisional leaders or your team leaders or your line leaders, however you might structure your business, are absolutely in sync with the messages that you want communicated or that are going back and forth between your staff and between the most senior people in the business. Because if you get a disconnect or someone steps out of line with that message, I think that's where some of that trust stuff and that can come undone, where the staff may be on the floor just going, well, right, they don't really care, or I haven't really heard about this for a while, or why has he made that decision? If it's not being flowed down, articulated. And so you've got to do the work with your own leadership teams, right, to make sure you are all in sync and we're all chasing that common goal.
That's great. I'm looking at the time, so we're going to do a drastic jump with topic changes, but we want to learn from you, Matt, because, as part of IVE Group have acquired a lot of businesses, and, we're in our chats, we spoke about this, and some of them are 10 people businesses and etc. So we can learn a lot from you here. Just to start the conversation, when acquiring these businesses, so small and medium business owners can understand what's being looked for. What do you actually look for in this space? When actually, are there qualities? Are there values? What is it that's actually being really looked at?
Yeah. And before I get into that, Nat, it's important to understand that our business is coming up 102 years old. And we, whilst as a public company, we are still largely a third generation family business. So our business was started in 1921 in Balmain in Sydney, in Australia, and has gone through grandfather, father, and now grandsons or sons as stewardship and custodians of the business. And so two of the sons are on the board. One is our executive chairman, one is an executive director, and they're still one of the largest shareholders in the business today, even though we're a public company. So we have an appreciation for a lot of that small business and or family values in our business, despite the fact for the last 7 years we've been a public company. So to answer your question, we think about acquisitions in multiple ways, Nat. One is, how can we change a market or an environment that we operate in today and maybe change the competitive landscape by consolidating a market that we're in? And that could be therefore looking at some competitors that maybe we should approach or look to buy, or may want to exit, or may not be doing as well, and may make sense that they join our business. We also look at acquisitions that make sense to us around how do we expand our value proposition to our clients today? How do we remain relevant tomorrow, just as we are today for our clients? Because the world of marketing services is rapidly changing. And 101 years ago, when our business started in Balmain, it was a community newspaper printing business. And clearly that is not as relevant to our 2,800 clients today as what it was 101 years ago, right? So we need to do things in our business, both through investment in technology in our business, but also maybe investment in acquisitions or alliances or partnerships that are going to help you change your value proposition and evolve it and keep it relevant. One of the biggest things when we're looking at acquisitions, Nat, is what is the fit with our business? So if I think about that first bucket that I spoke about, which is acquiring a business in the market that we're already in, and we're consolidating and we're bringing them into one of our existing businesses, how are they going to fit our business? What is their client base like? and what are the drivers for the owner in terms of maybe wanting to sell their business or the vendor. So we have a combination, we have got a wide array of examples in our business of what those drivers for owners were. So I have a gentleman running a business in Melbourne for us today, and that business is probably 200 million of our revenue. And we bought his family business in 2006. He wanted a greater career for himself and for his employees than what he was able to do as a private small business owner back in 2006. He has stayed with our business since then, and he himself has gone on to have a fantastic career with our business and is an awesome leader. And when you look at the staff that came through with that business, they just slotted into our business really well and complemented us extremely well. So I think for us, culture is a really big part of it, right? So how can the culture of the company that we're looking to acquire fit with our culture? And I can say to you, we've not always got that right. I can think of at least one acquisition we did where strategically it was absolutely the right acquisition. It was super important. It helped really change our value proposition in a particular sector we were operating in. It really helped expand what we could do. We just did not have the culture piece right, one iota, and it was overlooked. There just wasn't enough weighting placed on it in the acquisition process, and it took us, I think, 2 years to work through the cultural issues between the team that joined the business and our existing people, and some of the friction and the leadership ructions and all of those sorts of things. Now, we still ended up with fantastic people out of that, and a lot of those people are still there today, but it was not a seamless process from a culture perspective. And I think the culture piece has got to be really, really high up on the agenda. So often we will get approached by owners looking to sell their business because maybe they're at a life stage where they want to go on and do something else, or they want to go into retirement, and they're thinking about their staff, and they're thinking about their customers, and they're good custodians of their business, and they want to hand it over to a company that is going to continue to be a good custodian of that business. So they want to be fairly remunerated for their business in terms of what they sell it for, but they also want to know that their staff can go on to have a great career, are going to be well looked after, and that those customers are going to continue to be loved. And in fact, those customers are going to go into an even bigger environment where maybe those customers will be able to access more products and services and new initiatives and new ideas beyond what they as a small business owner was able to provide them at that time. So I think a couple of different scenarios of why people look to sell NAT, some of them obviously for financial reasons, some of them for life stage reasons, and some of them because they've maybe run their course as a small business owner, but still are really passionate about the industry they're working in, and are thinking, well, you know what, if I can get our business into IVE, I too can actually go on and have a fantastic career with this company, which if you think about where I started in this business 25 years ago, opening an agency here in Sydney, and IVE acquiring that agency not long thereafter, that is also how I joined this business. And I've gone on to have a fantastic career in this business with many, many leadership roles over time. So yeah, I highly encourage people to not rule out either selling or having discussions. And again, if you've got business advisors, working with your business advisors around what some of those strategies could look like.
Matt, can I ask you a question? If I'm not if I'm a small business, our audience is small and medium business. So let's talk about small business, and say I'm a company that want to be part of IVE Group, for example. You talk about culture. As a small company, I don't have any sophistications in terms of explaining the culture, how we operate in our business. I just know we are a 10 people business playing in the same field as IVE. I love my team. The team love me. We've been working together for 11 years. We are big in one region of the city, but I'm old, and I wanna bring this to IVE. IVE, I assume, and apologize not to understand your business in depth, being a very successful company, multiple countries, will have a very solid definition of culture, vision, type of organization that can fit into your business. How do I, as the leader of this small business, translate that and sell that to Matt Aitken? How do I do that?
Yeah, Gus, you'd maybe just think maybe we should have a more formal document around culture in our business because we don't have it. So, because for me, culture, good culture, right, is about the feel. It's not about what's on paper. It's not about a framework. It's about the feel. Like, you know, if you're in touch with your business, in touch with your people, and you're a good leader and you're spending time with them, you've got a feel for whether there's a good culture there or not, and you're working with your leadership teams around it. And you know, culture will ebb and flow over time. So, you know, there will be times where it's not 100% where you want it to be, or we might have gone through a very difficult period on something for one reason or another, and we know the culture's taken a bit of a hit. So I think back to your point about that, say that small business of 10 people or 15 people and an owner wanting to maybe sell into a company like IVE and wondering, does the culture fit with us? I think a lot of that is about, you know, if we feel a connection with the owner, and if over time, as we go through that sale process, we meet a couple of the other staff, depending upon how, you know, how trusted they are about the process the owner's considering, you get a very quick feel for, do I like you? Can we work together? Do you like us? You know, so it's as much about us telling a potential owner or a potential business that we're going to acquire about our journey and about who we are, so they have a level of comfort about IVE as a company, about how we operate, about who the people are, about the environment that they would be coming into. So there's almost a bit of reverse selling going on at times as well, because I want them to feel really comfortable about this environment or understand the business that they're looking to potentially sell into. So, Gus, I think every day of the week, it's about the feel. It's not about what's down on paper, whether it's a culture document or something else, right?
And can I go even deeper? How do you standardize feel in your organization? I mean, my feel about cold, I mean, I'm just talking about Melbourne is cold, Sydney can be cold, but when I take my wife to Sydney, she said Sydney as cold as Melbourne, and I'm just talking temperature. And we're talking about culture where we cannot touch it, but we can feel it. We can see it where people smiling. But sometimes different people smile differently. Even on the screen, Nat smile differently to me and you. So how can you teach us around this? How do you feel a good culture, Matt?
So I think that goes back to being present in the business, Gus. You know, you've got to be out there with your staff. You've got to be seeing it with your own eyes. Yes, you've got to have great leadership teams for those businesses that do have leadership teams, and we have fantastic leadership teams, whether it's a team that report to me or their leaders or down to our site leaders. We have fantastic leadership teams, and I'm passionate about the people that we have in our business and believe that we have some of the best leaders in the industry, and I back them to be able to read the culture and to get the culture right. But with almost 20 sites around the country, Gus, our sites have different cultures in them. So we are not a vanilla culture across 20 sites by any means. And it's also significant of the fact, and Nat, you raised it earlier, that we've acquired 20 odd businesses in the last 10 years. And when you acquire businesses, you bring some of their culture into your business. It's not like leave your culture at the door and adopt ours. It's actually, no, you know, you've got lots of good things going on in your business as well. You were a successful business too. Come and join us and we'll be an even better business, and bring some of your culture and bring some of your thinking to our business too, because again, we don't know everything, and we want to learn from each other. So we have different cultures in our sites around the countries, and it was again very evident back through COVID, Gus, again with those prolonged lockdowns in Victoria, how that was affecting culture in our Victorian sites versus maybe culture in our New South Wales sites, where the government handled the situation quite differently to the Victorian government, obviously. But in saying that we have different cultures, there's probably some commonality amongst all of them. And, you know, it's really important too that our leaders understand where as a business we're going. But none of those cultures, in my opinion, in our sites or the nuances of them are out of step with what we are as a broader business.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, Matt, still that story that you shared about the gentleman, I think you mentioned Melbourne in 2006 when you acquired that company, and he's still working in the business under IVE Group. I think a lot of our listeners today, I mean, that comes as a shock to me, because when we think about acquisition, we think that we're selling our business to another company and that's it, it's gone.
Yeah.
But yet you've bought a business and the leader's still there. I'm assuming the employees are still there, a lot of them as well.
Yep. A lot of the employees are still here. Yeah, exactly right. And
Yeah,
sorry, you keep going.
For me, it was just, I'm sure there's listeners that are listening in that are going, wow, that is completely new to me, because it is new to me to hear this side of an acquisition. So just for me, it was just that, confirmation, so that listeners are listening out there. There's other options of acquisitions. It's not just a transactional, here's my business, I'm done with it.
Correct. That's exactly right, Nat. I think there's a real opportunity for small businesses and owners to go on and have fantastic careers if they come into a different business structure or a different group, and be just like this gentleman that we've spoken about here, 17 years on, in a really senior role for us, leading actually our largest revenue business unit across the entire group, and doing a great job. And look, I've seen businesses that we've bought, Nat, where the owners come for a year or two as well. So, and then at the end of that year or two, has dialed out and gone off and done whatever they want to do from there. Again, retirement, different stuff in life. And the staff have carried on in our business and flourished in their careers in our business. But, the owner had stuck around for a period of time, again, as the custodian of his people or her people, as a custodian of their customer base. And when they've got to a point that they're comfortable with that and they do want to go and do something different, they've just quietly stepped away out of the scene. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can tackle that acquisition discussion. And, a lot of this discussion we've just had has actually been about selling. We were talking to the listeners about selling their business. I think they should also be thinking about buying and or JVs and those sorts of things too. So they shouldn't always feel like there's somewhat about selling and getting out or being on the back foot through a sale process. Actually, why don't you think about getting on the front foot and being the acquirer or approaching someone about doing a JV if you can see a competitor out there or someone who works in a nice adjacency that's going to expand your value proposition. Why don't you commence some discussions around a joint venture and a partnership, and maybe together with common shareholding, you're a far stronger business than what you were individually, and yet you've still got a meaningful share in a business that you own moving forward. So I think it should be thought of as both ways.
So many key takeaways for everyone. I do want to ask, though, the acquisition strategy, in it you mentioned the focus for IVE Group is to remain relevant today and tomorrow. It's pretty powerful stuff. What can small business owners actually take away from that? Because it's not just about being relevant today. You're actually looking at the future. What can we actually take away from that? I know smaller businesses aren't as big as IVE Group, but what are the key messages there?
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily about size either, Nat, in terms of that being an impediment to being relevant today and tomorrow, because a lot of it is about saying, well, what's the market and the sector that we operate in, and what our customers want today, and what is it they actually could want tomorrow. And if we're not actually sure, I think we just need to ask customers at times, right? So we've got customers who will be maybe a bit of ahead of us on the journey in terms of where they want to go, and we can see where they're wanting to go, and we need to make sure we're there. But there's other times where I think we need to make decisions to evolve our value proposition, because we think that's where customers are going to need to be and expect us to be, but we need to get there before the customer is knocking on the door asking, can we provide this product and service? And, as a business that has its traditional roots in printing, for the last 100 odd years, and printing is still a very big part of what we do today. It's probably 50% of our revenues. There would be a lot of people with a view, well, printing's on the way out. Well, I have a different view, but that's for a different day to debate and discuss that. But it's really, really important that when we're sitting there with customers like Westpac and CommBank, to pick two examples, we're not sitting there as their printer. We're sitting there as their marketing services provider. And to be a genuine marketing services provider for some of these corporates, we need to be providing digital communication strategies, consultancy, advice, supply chain management solutions, a whole range of other things outside of just printing, because the relevance for them today of having a printer is not what it was 5 years ago or 20 years ago. It's just not as big a part of their marketing mix any longer, and we acknowledge that. And that's what we've worked hard to make sure that we are a very broad, holistic marketing services group and very relevant to our customers today. But we constantly need to keep evolving to remain relevant tomorrow.
It sounds like, from what you just mentioned now, it's almost like it's, becoming a one-stop shop for the client is really where you're evolving to. So really, and I can put my hand up, so I run Elite Words and we provide copy, but we saw a gap when, we're providing copy, but then they would go elsewhere for design. So, there was that gap there. So now we do copy and design. but it was that evolving, getting there, listening to the customers. So really becoming that one-stop shop is really where small business owners should be looking at, and not just saying it's outside of scope, because they are losing leads.
It's exactly right. And I think, and so that goes back to that, have the chat with the customers. Customers are often very, very happy to tell you what else they would love to see you doing, what else they think you should be doing. And to your point, Nat, you see a gap and you can go and say to the customer, where are you getting the design done? Are you happy? Can we have a chat about that? And often you'll find the customer go, absolutely, I'd love it if you could do the design as well. That's one less supplier I've got to work with, or that's one less invoice I've got to pay because you'll give me one invoice for the whole lot. Or there's a whole lot of reasons why, from an efficiency perspective, customers want less suppliers rather than more. And that does give you an opportunity to continue to expand the products and services you supply those customers.
And I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. I think we or our audience as a business owner, business leaders, one of the things that we have to be careful is being very precious about what we know today, because what we know and what we do today, while it can be very, very strong, it can limit us to be very relevant tomorrow. Exactly, just in the example of, hey, you might be printing today, but you can be print and also being a master in digital, and also a master of become a marketing agency, and even be a master of manufacturing consultancy in paper printing manufacturing, for example. I'm not the expert of that, but I think that's what I take from what you say. Is that quite accurate, the way?
Yeah, that is accurate, Gus. And I think you got to be realistic, which goes to the point about pressures. You got to be realistic about where the world's going and evolving in certain aspects. So there is no point in us being precious about why a company's not printing annual reports any longer. That just annual reports don't need to be printed, right? Let's not be precious about that. But let's recognise that as consumers, and we're all consumers as well, we live in an omni-channel world. So we don't want to consume material just in print or just in digital. We actually consume across all channels, and therefore, as a marketing services group assisting our clients drive their marketing programs, we need to make sure we are a truly omni-channel business, and that consumers can consume content and data in whatever means at whatever time they want to be able to consume it. And that is where we're going to be the most powerful partner for our customers, is if we understand that. We're not precious about one channel over another. We're precious about getting it right for our customers, and the customers getting the right results that they're looking for. Because if they're getting that right result off that marketing campaign, they will be back around the table doing another one and doing another one and doing another one. And together we will look like successful, and we will be making them successful in their jobs.
It's brilliant. Matt, you can tell this topic of love, you can tell that you love what you do, you love your customers, you love your staff. It really shines through even on the screen. And we can keep talking about this topic for ages, but Gus, I've got to hand it over to you to wrap it up.
Thank you. Matt, before I wrap this up, and I hope I do justice in summarizing all the insights, once again, on behalf of Brainiac, Natalie, Jared in the background, and myself, we can't say enough thank you. You are a busy leader. You're responsible for many families across different countries, and we cannot say enough thank you for your insight for our audience all over the world. The topic that we bring today through Matt Aitken, CEO of IVE, is the importance of love in the organizational success. Being present, care, and being on the ground with your team. That's how you demonstrate love. Love does not mean we change our expectation. I actually like what you said when you said, hey, this is not about being nice. This is expectation have to be run to the maximum. Performance develop them and the organization, and when that happens, you can actually see everyone grow. Love carry passion, care, and drive. Execute this, and once again, you said business will grow. Love your customer by continuously demonstrating real values to them. Love in the customer and staff topic is not, I actually love this. You said love, when we talk about love in the topic of customer and staff, it's not about we all allowing them to hugging a tree. It's not about, everyone hugging the same tree. Conflict issues, growth, performance expectation, tears are all the key ingredients for growing love in the organization itself. Your problem is my problem, is the way to grow love in the organization. I like that. Good culture is about the feel. And I like when you said, to be honest, I don't know how to put it on paper. We interview many people, and we engage on many leaders that we end up not taking to this talk because many do not able to actually say it as is. So thank you, Matt, to say that, hey, you want to know good culture? Then you need to feel it. And how do you feel it? You need to be present. You need to be present. You need to be there. You need to expect your team, your leadership team to be there, or you need to be there because it's all about the field, not on paper. Be relevant today and tomorrow. And to be relevant, it starts with your staff, your customer, and your shareholders. Thank you, Matt, for your time today. We learned a lot from you, and we hope plenty of success for IVE Group in the future.
Thanks, Gus, and thanks, Nat. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you today, and I hope the listeners enjoyed it.
It's been a great chat. Thank you so much, Matt. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiact.com.au. Bye, everyone.